Good afternoon, it's Classy Liberal here with my first response video.
Dave Rubin, who is the host of the Rubin Report on YouTube, has made a video entitled "The Left is No Longer Liberal." And basically, it's a video defaming the famous regressive left, whoever the fuck that may be.
Oh yes, this is gonna be really nice.
And he basically goes on to talk about things that this so-called regressive left do, which is try to be victims and then have...
Yes, try to be victims. One of the ways people from the left try to be victims is with this whole culture of microaggressions. Personally, I find this whole microaggressions thing to be ridiculous. There's this article from the Washington Post, and I'll put a link in the description below, but I want you to read it. I'm going to read a quick excerpt from it and then basically explain why this is an issue. Larry Mantle, a radio host in California, was moderating a discussion last month at UC Irvine on a front subject of microaggressions. Words, though utterly innocently by white people, are said to deeply offend those who are less privileged when he made a big mistake. As he called on the first questionnaire, he asked, "Where are you from?" Not the standard question for a talk show host, but the audience froze in silence, briefly and uncomfortably, before breaking into nervous laughter. Now, basically the article, later explains that one of the persons in the show said that, white people don't have to worry about this, when I find it ridiculous because I'm Hispanic, but I could easily pass as a Caucasian person. People ask me this all the time. Not because they're racist, not because they're privileged, just for the sake of conversation. Really, this whole culture of microaggressions is becoming more and more rampant. You see this everywhere in college campuses. So yes, the left does try to be victims, and this microaggression thing is just one example of how people try to be victims. People are being offended for the most ridiculous things ever. Okay, and this was pointed out by Dave Rubin in his video, "Why the Left is No Longer Liberal."
Groups over individuals and things like this, and there's no doubt there are certain people like this, and that are going to be, we talk about this often too, because there are times where certain things will get in front of them, like, I don't know, being a Hillary supporter will get in the way of actually seeing her problems, and Bernie Sanders pros, or something of that nature. But what I see here is that, especially with the title, "The Left is No Longer Liberal." You're telling me the whole left is no longer liberal? And don't even try and tell me that's not what he said, because that's literally the title of the video.
Yes, that is the title of his video. Now, granted, I don't agree with the title of the video. I think he should have used a different title. But that's not his argument, though. If you actually watch the video, he doesn't say that the entire left is no longer liberal.
The portion of the left which is no longer progressive, meaning for progress, but regressive, meaning going backwards, has been identified, and now we're clearly bringing people to the side of reason.
Notice that he said a portion of the left. He didn't say all of the left or the entire left. He said a portion. Now, yes, the video title does say the left. So yes, I would agree with you. He shouldn't generalize by saying the left is no longer liberal, but you're strawmanning his argument then.
So, what I've seen from Dave Rubin, and he's a massive pro-Israel guy, so you kind of get the esque feeling from him that he's teetering towards the center. He's kind of a Bill Maher type of guy, but I would put Bill Maher a little more left than he is. But it seems like Dave Rubin is a centrist Democrat at best to me. And, he claims to be for rights of the individual, but he goes on to, literally in the video, basically defame all groups trying to fight for that. Black Lives Matter, pro-choice people. He brings up pro-life people as well, and he brings up, gay marches and stuff like that. And he basically, what he's doing is he's saying that when groups, paint another group with one brush, but he's doing the same thing. He's painting everyone with the same brush.
Okay, so I don't think you understand what he means by individual rights. For example, you mentioned Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, whether you like them or not, whether you support them or not, they fight for the collective, not the individual. That's why they're called Black Lives Matter, okay? Because they don't go like individually, case by case, and see, which cases of police brutality are justified or not. They tend to label those cases as police brutality, even if there was no police brutality, or even if there was police brutality, but some things are a little bit, unclear. Right? And that's why people like Dave Rubin are so hard on these movements. Okay, because like you said, they paint people with the same brush. Now, I'm gonna repeat myself. Yes, his title does paint the left with one brush, but that's not his main argument. Like I said, he's not saying that all of the left, are a bunch of regressives. He's saying that a good portion of the left. And really, this portion is so huge that you could almost say it's a majority. You go to college campuses, you go to universities, all you see this whole talk about microaggressions, trigger warnings. It's ridiculous. We can't even have honest discussion on Islam because people are afraid that, if they say the wrong thing, some people from the left will regard it as Islamophobic or racist.
So he is claiming that the left is no longer liberal. And while I'm sure there are people who aren't, the majority of the left is still liberal. And that is the truth about it, whether you like it or not. So saying things like the left is not liberal anymore is just not true. And he brings up examples of people like Larry Elder, who are black conservatives, who are coming out against the Black Lives Matter movement. Like, he is seemingly falling for one of the biggest, fake black Republican people and just these fake ideologies that give these few African Americans massive fame and massive money and all this, massive status.
Has it ever occurred to you that some black people don't agree with other black people? Just how some white people don't agree with other white people? This is ridiculous. If you're gonna at least call these people fake conservatives, you're assuming that they're just having these positions just for they can take advantage of their skin color and make money from this. At the very least, provide some evidence for this. I really would love to know how Larry Elder and other black conservatives like him are fake or part of a false ideology. Please show me.
Kind of like Stacey Dash, but she got fired. And there's always a lot of these people, and you can seemingly see that his centrism is catching up to him very fast because he's starting to teeter to the other side, massively to the other side. I mean, he will have a lot of people on his show, and that's fine and all, but he doesn't really check anybody, and it doesn't matter where they're from. So there will be people on the right that come on, and it'll just be, say whatever you want. I don't care. You're on my show. I'll give you my platform to spew your bullshit, but I'm not going to check you at all.
And that's the whole point of his show. His show is a sort of, he sits down with the person and just listens to them. Hey, I'm not saying we shouldn't challenge these people. Of course we should challenge it. I encourage it. That's why we have people like David Pakman or Sam Cedar or, any other type of journalist that goes out there but actually gives them challenging questions that sometimes might question their own views. But that's not the point of Dave Rubin's show. The point of his show is so he can sit down and try to find some sort of common ground, or if not, try to learn from them. It may seem ridiculous, but sometimes some of these people on the right or conservatives actually make fair points. They actually make valid arguments that are worth discussing, and sometimes they even say things that I, as a liberal, agree with.
And Dave Rubin is not someone who really seems to be all that objective, because someone who's objective doesn't paint a whole side of a political spectrum based off of the title of this fucking video, The Left is No Longer Liberal. I consider myself part of the left, and I definitely consider myself a liberal, no doubt.
Okay, so I don't think you quite understand what Dave Rubin means by the term liberal. He doesn't use the term liberal like people use it in mainstream media politics, which is someone with left-leaning views, someone who's a social democrat or a progressive. No, what Dave Rubin means by the term liberal is someone that upholds liberty. That's where, liberal comes from the term liberty. But you see, Dave Rubin, when he uses the term liberal, he's talking about classical liberals, people who care about upholding free speech, people who don't want to silence others. And I'm sad to say this, but a significant number of people in the left don't quite hold those principles.
What he's doing is saying that they are painting people with one brush, but he's doing the same thing. So is he the one trying to use identity politics, or are they trying to use it, or are they both trying to use it? Because for me, it's not so much what group is liberal, what group is conservative, whatever that is. To me, it is who is more objective on the issues and the policy matter.
Okay, so in a way you're not wrong. In a way I sort of agree with you. In a way, yes, you could say both David Rubin and the progressive left are using identity politics, but you're only mentioning, one time where Dave Rubin actually, yes, did paint one group with the same brush. But that's, like I said, that's not his main argument. I'm not gonna explain it again. But yes, the regressive left is famous for identity politics.
It seems that he is falling victim of what he is claiming other people, or he is criticizing other people for, and calling other people being victims for. And here's what it is. I've seen Dave Rubin, specifically on this being pro-Israel, is that he's seen, and I know where he's getting a lot of his rhetoric in this video from, and it is from people like Bill Maher and Sam Harris criticizing Islam and saying all Islamists are radicals. And you can go back and look at the interview. They don't even specify. And then they go on to show these stats from the Middle East, and then they'll make some up off the fly, and it's like, and then people will get pissed, because it's like, why would you paint all of them with the same brush? And it's as it, they seem to act like the written word is as if it's really that different from the Quran is, even though they're all based off of the same shit, and the only really difference is secularism and education and things like that.
Okay, so I think it's great that you want to be objective. And if we're talking about issues such as religion or politics, yes, we need to be objective, and that's important. But I don't think you quite understand how the regressive left is not being objective when it comes to Islam. They seem to acknowledge that yes, there's Islamic terrorism, but they don't seem to acknowledge that the doctrine of Islam is a problem. And I'm not saying that you are part of the regressive left, but I'm saying that you are using one of their common tactics, which is misrepresenting people who criticize Islam. People like Sam Harris and Bill Maher, they acknowledge that not all Muslims are radical, or that not all Muslims are bad. They acknowledge that yes, there are peaceful Muslims, but there is a significant amount of Muslims that are not peaceful. And I don't think you're quite familiar with Sam Harris's work, because Sam Harris is an atheist, he criticizes Islam, but he actually wants to reform the religion. I'm gonna show you now a few clips of Sam Harris, and you tell me if they're misrepresenting Islam, or if they're painting all Muslims with the same brush. Please do.
Yeah, so the claim is that I generalize about Muslims, and this is incredibly ironic because half the time in that Bill Maher clip was spent where I was talking about statistics and poll results and percentages, and a certain percentage is jihadist, and then there's a wider circle of Islamists, and then there's a wider circle of conservatives. And so I never generalize about the Muslim world. And insofar as we have good data on the numbers of people who subscribe to various beliefs, then I'm always looking at those data. And so yeah, no, I don't generalize. And I think, of course, there are millions and millions of Muslims who do not take the barbaric passages in the Quran and the Hadith seriously, and who are not wanting to kill apostates and don't want to throw gays from rooftops. And those are not the people I'm talking about. I mean, or if I'm ever talking about them in my criticism of religion, I'm talking about them in the same spirit that I talk about, Reform Jews or non-doctrinaire Christians who are not a real threat to anybody, but who may be bending public policy around in ways we don't like.
Sure.
The problem with many of those Muslims is they don't want their religion criticized at all, and they don't want any link between its core tenets around jihad and paradise and martyrdom, spelled out with, in terms of its the way it's generating the kinds of violence and intolerance we're seeing in the world today. It's a war of ideas and a civil war happening within the Muslim world, and we need to empower the moderating voices within that community in any way that we can. And we want those people here in our society, even in the most cynical way. If your only concern was defending free societies from extremism, you want moderate, secular, liberal Muslims in your society as that immune system. I mean, these, in my view, are the most important people in the world. I mean, these people go to the front of my line. The end game for civilization is an integrated, pluralistic, tolerant civil society, and we need diversity in that context. The end game can't be that we all silo ourselves in our separate, more homogenized and radically disparate communities where we just have less interaction with one another. We're talking about the spread of ideas. When you're talking about jihadism, you're not, for the most part, even talking about people crossing borders as migrants and refugees. You're talking about YouTube videos that have been watched, that people who may be third-generation citizens or never immigrated at all, these people find these ideas compelling, and these ideas lead to action. And so if we're going to win a war of ideas with the Muslim world, we need to empower the reforming voices within that community to do it.
Dave Rubin is teetering towards the center, and I think he's pushing more right at this point than he is left, and he's jumping on to grab onto this realm, trying to attack the left and kind of join this huge movement, because the reality is everyone is attacking the left. Everyone's attacking the shit out of the left, whether it be Hillary supporters, whether it be Bernie supporters. To be, in all fairness, there is somewhat of a civil war in the right too, but there's this whole, what I would say, you could say a trend going on of people just attacking the left at this point for mainly losing the election. And then and to be fair, there's always, of course, going to be those SJWs and just who are not, but they are not the ones who really represent. And that is why I don't really care. I'm caring that people are objective, and my job as a person is to go issue by issue and make sure people are objective and try to make people objective on those certain policy and points. So he's just grabbing for attention and views, and that's really what he's doing, and that's what I'm seeing here. So instead of criticizing other people for identity politics and then you playing identity politics by saying the left is no longer liberal, that's what you're doing. I don't care about titles. What I care about is policy position and objectiveness.
Look, I think you make a great point when you say that Dave Rubin might be catering too much to conservatives, or that he might be a bit soft on people on the right, but overall your video is very lazily written, if it was written at all. You offer very little evidence for your points, and you made a straw man out of Dave Rubin's argument. Even though, yes, his title is painting one group with the same brush, that is not at all what he's trying to argue, and you don't understand the point of the Rubin report. It is not about, challenging ideas like in other shows, rather, it's challenging our ideas. And I think you fail to understand that. So this ends the video. I'll see you until then.